All right, we're doing questions. You are being manipulated and you may not know it. AI has changed everything about politics, the ability to meet in the middle, as sort of one of the great things about being an American. Anybody can be a broadcaster now. Anybody can have their own newscast. Being a journalist was always sort of a patriotic act in our household. My name is Margaret Tadlev. I'm a journalist and the founding Kramer Director for Syracuse University's Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship in Washington, D.C. I'm also a professor of practice at the S.I. Newhouse School of Public Communications. I'm going to talk to you about misinformation, trust, and the 2024 elections. All right, we're doing questions? Yes. What's the difference between misinformation and disinformation? Well, they're both bad, and they're both full of inaccuracies. Generally speaking, misinformation is just more broadly information that's inaccurate and that's spread around so that more people get inaccurate information. But disinformation is kind of one step further. It's the deliberate spread of misinformation for a strategic purpose. So on some level, it doesn't really matter if you're getting misinformation or specifically disinformation. But again, disinformation has that strategic element. You are being manipulated and you may not know it. How has AI changed the political conversation in just the past year? Okay, this could be an entire masterclass taught by an actual master. I will try to give you a brief synopsis. AI has changed everything about politics, and this is only the beginning. And really, we're talking about generative AI and the ability to make deep fakes of voices, of images, everything from memes to really things that are not meant to be funny, but that are meant to misinform. Countless numbers of ads on social media impersonating every political candidate for office. It makes it harder for people to believe anything and to know what they can believe. That disenfranchises voters and could make voters more cynical or reduce their participation, fomenting a level of distrust so that people really don't know what to believe anymore. What is media literacy and how can we all get better at it? I love this question because so much of this is about why we have an Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship here at Syracuse University. In general, media literacy is just becoming informed so that you can understand the difference between news, opinion, entertainment, and misinformation, and understanding how to navigate different kinds of media to get a full picture of information you can trust. One great tip for media literacy is try to pick a neutral mainstream news organization, as well as some outlets that lean left and that lean right, as well as some outlets that are international as well as domestic. And that way you get a real 360 view. What is the Syracuse University Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship? I'm glad you asked. We are a product of the Newhouse School, the Maxwell School, and Syracuse University as a whole. We're based in Washington, D.C., but we're everywhere. We are on main campus, we're around the country, and our headquarters are in Washington. We are a research institution, we teach, and we do engagement with the public. And our goal in all of this is to help to understand and to spread information about the intersection between news and media consumption, what kind of government we get, and how we are engaged as citizens. What is the mainstream media, and does it still exist? Yes, it still exists. The mainstream media are large-scale news organizations whose chief goal is to deliver fact-based information, not ideologically driven information, not outcome-driven information, but information based on what's happening and how a range of people view or understand or are shaping it. Mainstream news organizations almost always have vetting, have standards for fact-checking, have a series of editors who are involved in decision-making, have training protocols for the journalists who are working there. There is also such a crush of other media, not just news media, but entertainment, opinion, on social, on digital, on print platforms. Many younger people have been moving away from mainstream news outlets that are institutional, that may be subscription-based, but that doesn't mean that they're not out there. And what is special about mainstream news outlets is that reporters who work for these organizations, they do take an oath to put the facts above everything else, to be in search of the news, and deliver fact-based information that will help shape history and elections and stand the test of time. How has covering national politics changed over just the past 20 years? It's changed a lot. The advent of Facebook and then Twitter and then TikTok and all of social media and all of these media platforms. Anybody can be a broadcaster now. Anybody can have their own newscast. There's no standards, it's not vetted, they don't have professional training, but they can call themselves news. That has helped to completely fracture what's available out there and who is drawn to what. And it's exacerbated the media silos. It's also allowed people to innovate and to find niche outlets that really reflect their interests. But it's very hard to message to one audience, for one reporter to reach an all-American audience. There's almost no such thing anymore. What drives your passion for politics, democracy, and the media? I've been obsessed with news ever since I was a little kid. In my household, my dad was an immigrant from Bulgaria, my mother was an American, my dad was a Republican, my mom leaned more Democratic. They would argue politely, intellectually, about everything at the dinner table while watching the news. That was our family pastime. And so I came to identify both issues and disagreement over issues, but with the ability to meet in the middle as sort of one of the great things about being an American. My dad fled a communist country. He always told us that being able to get accurate information you can trust and disagree out loud with your government without being worried about being punished, the idea that you could make government better by disagreeing with what the people in power were doing, those are all the great attributes of the United States. And in that context, being a journalist was always sort of a patriotic act in our household because it meant that you were working to try to help people understand what their government was doing so that they could push back and help make our democracy stronger. And for our last question, are Americans truly as divided as they appear to be in the media? This answer is going to blow your mind because the answer is no. Americans really are not nearly as divided as they appear to be in the media and as the two major political parties would have you think. Like, to be sure, there are some divided opinions over major issues in America. Where do you stand on abortion? Where do you stand on immigration? But the reality is that Americans have much more in common and believe many more of the same things than their differences. But everything from our political system to our social media system is incentivized to exacerbate the divisions. And so the divisions are what drive the debate, and it's harder for politicians to reach common ground than if you ask most people how they feel. What makes us seem so polarized is called affective polarization. It's really emotional polarization. The feeling that your side is the right side and the other side is the enemy. And feelings about polarization are only partly driven by those policies. They're driven in a lot of ways by where you feel is your place in society, where you fit into the big picture, whether political parties or political leaders care about people like you, understand what drives people like you. It's that emotional polarization that makes finding common solutions so difficult. One of our big challenges as journalists and as people in government and politics are to figure out how to bridge those divides and how to get the most out of an informed citizenry that can reach across the aisle to find solutions. But overall, Americans agree on a lot more about what's important than disagree. I hope this information's been helpful. Remember to vote. A lot of people think my vote doesn't make a difference. But the truth is, especially among younger voters who think about voting, who feel strongly about what they want to do, and who often stay home, if you actually do turn out to vote, you can make a huge difference.